This meeting is being recorded.
Yes. All right. So welcome to Perma Talks, Bernhard and everyone. So please, Bernhard Gruber, go ahead.
Yes, hi, I'm Bernhard Gruber from Austria, and I'm pleased to be with you tonight. It's one of my first, not the first one, but one of my first talks in English. I'm not an English native speaker. My native language is Austrian German, but I'm quite advanced, not advanced in English, but I'm used to speak English. So I'm sure we can have then later on the discussion quite good. And yeah, for the beginning, that you might get an idea what we are doing here in Austria. It might be a little bit different to your situation there in Finland, but to give you a brief introduction, I will show you a short video. You will also find it on YouTube. It's also there. And then you have somehow the overview, what we are doing here, and to get an idea. So it will take about 8 minutes just to give you this information. And now I try to go there with my computer.
Stell dir vor, du lebst in einem Garten unter dem erfrischenden Schatten von Obstbäumen, in welchem das Obst der Bäume und Weintrauben wachsen. Rund um dich findest du reichlich tragende Beerensträucher, welche zahlreichen Vögeln Habitat und in der Blütezeit Insekten Pollen geben. Öffnet sich das dichte Blätterdach ein wenig, findest du Blühstauden und Kräuter, welche dir schon bereits im Frühjahr kraftvolle Nahrung geben. Stell dir vor, nach der Wein- und Obsternte im Herbst kannst du dann noch verschiedenste Nüsse und Maronen sammeln und über den Winter hinaus kannst du Knollen und Wurzelgemüse ausgraben. Stell dir vor, dein Garten produziert alles Lebensnotwendige für dich und deine Liebsten und du brauchst nur noch regulierend einzugreifen und zu ernten. Du brauchst nie mehr den Boden im großen Stil wenden, es fallen keine Abfälle an, es bleibt alles im Kreislauf der Natur. Du streifst durch deinen Garten, in der Hand einen Korb und sammelst deine Lebensmittel im Supermarkt der Natur. Mein Vater Hans-Hermann Gruber startete Ende der 1980er Jahre genau solch einen Paradiesgarten, beruhend auf dem Buch und der Idee des Engländers Robert Hart. Vor über 30 Jahren begann er auf einem ehemaligen Acker im Ausmaß von 4300 Quadratmetern gezielt Obstbäume, Beerensträucher, mehrere Stauden und Rankpflanzen zu setzen. Das Schwierige an dieser Zeit war, es gab noch kein Internet und es war schwierig, gute Literatur und passendes Pflanzmaterial zu finden. Es gab auch nicht wirklich die Möglichkeit, sich mit Gleichgesinnten auszutauschen. Doch mit den Jahren wurde dann alles etwas einfacher. Das Internet wurde einer breiten Masse zugänglich, Netzwerke entstanden und so wuchs dann natürlich auch die Vielfalt unseres Waldgartens sehr rasch. In der Knollen- und Wurzelschicht finden wir Topinambur, Erdbirne und Meerrettich. Dieses Jahr experimentieren wir auch mit Maschur und Oloko. Die Lebendmulchschicht bilden verschiedenste Wildkräuter und Erdbeeren. Guter Heinrich, Süßdolde, Beinmehl, verschiedene Minzen, ausdauernder Buchweizen und viele mehr bilden die Staudenschicht. In der niederen Strauchschicht haben wir Johannisbeere, Stachelbeeren, japanische Weinbeere, schwarze amerikanische Himbeere, Brombeere und viele mehr. Die hohe Strauchschicht wird von einer großen Menge an Kornelkirschen, Ölweiden, Sanddorn, Erbsensträuchern und anderen gebildet. Zwetschgenbäume, Renekloden, Apfelbäume, Birnbäume, Aprikosenbäume, Pfirsichbäume und Baumaralien finden wir in unserer niederen Baumschicht. Die hohe Baumschicht bilden Erlen, Zuckerahorn, Manneesche und Kirschbäume. Die Kronenschicht stellen Lederhülsenbaum, Edelkastanie und Walnuss dar. In der Vertikalen finden wir Wein, Hopfen, Kiwi, Schisandra und Akevie. Grundsätzlich arbeiten wir mit einer räumlichen und zeitlichen Staffelung in unserem doch sehr dicht gedrängten Waldgarten. Bis sich im Frühjahr das Blätterdach wieder vollständig schließt, ist bei anderen Pflanzen teilweise die Vegetationszeit vorüber. Wir schneiden auch viel Biomasse aus unserem Waldgarten heraus, häckseln die Äste und bringen das Material wieder aus. Mit dem Häckselmaterial füttern wir die Mykorrhiza-Pilze im Boden, welche das Internet der Pflanzen darstellen. Alles Astwerk, was zu dick ist und sich nicht mehr häckseln lässt, verkohlen wir und stellen auf verschiedenen Wegen Terra Preta her. Natürlich haben wir neben unserem essbaren Waldgarten auch noch einen großen Gemüsegarten mit einjährigem Gemüse. Wir leben aber auch direkt unseren Waldgarten. Gerade im Frühjahr freuen wir uns nach einem kalten Winter schon auf die frischen Wildkräuter, die jungen Blätter der Taglilien und die jungen Brennnesseln, gefolgt vom würzigen Bärlauch. Das Jahr über ernten wir Blätter für Salate und Blattmehle. Beeren ernten wir zum Frischverzehr oder trocknen sie für den Winter oder machen Marmelade. Frisches Obst haben wir ab Juni und lagern es auch für den Winter ein. Aus Fallobst machen wir Most und Überschüsse lassen wir zu Schnaps brennen. In Summe haben wir 3 Hektar, wobei sich 1 Hektar direkt am Haus befindet. In der Zone 1 ist der Gemüsegarten mit einjährigem Gemüse, Salaten und Küchenkräutern. In der Zone 2 der essbare Waldgarten. In der Zone 3 unsere Nussbaumwiese mit über 25 Walnussbäumen. Es gibt noch eine weitere Fläche mit einem neu angelegten Waldgarten in Streifen. Dazwischen lag Gemüse. Wir haben auch einen kleinen Wald mit Brennholz und Bauholz. Etwas entfernt befindet sich noch ein sehr extensiver Waldgarten mit Chinampas. Auf unserem Gelände halten wir einmal im Jahr einen Permakultur-Praxis-Lehrgang und einen Permakultur-Designkurs. Zu Pfingsten öffnen wir einem breiten Publikum die Tore und halten Führungen ab. In der Vegetationszeit haben wir zahlreiche Praktikanten und Volontäre aus aller Welt. Um alle unsere Aktivitäten zu bündeln, gründeten wir 2016 das österreichische Waldgarteninstitut. Aktuell sind wir dabei, ein Vereinsgebäude zu errichten, in welchem wir unsere Produkte verarbeiten und lagern, aber auch unsere Kurse und Lehrgänge abhalten können. Gerade in den letzten Jahren sehen wir die Dringlichkeit, essbare Waldgärten zu errichten. Sie geben Ernährungssouveränität und stellen einen bemerkenswerten CO2-Speicher dar. Sie puffern die hohen Sommertemperaturen und sind somit Klimachance Nummer 1.
So hopefully I'm back. Okay, great. It's sometimes a little bit difficult. So now I try to go ahead with the presentation. The movie gave you somehow an overview what we are doing, and yeah, having a forest garden is one thing, but it's also to live it, you know, to use all the things it is providing. So it should not only be a show garden. So we don't need show gardens, we need edible gardens. This is somehow the main issue. And in my presentation, I will show you how we deal with our forest garden then. So I try to find the presentation. The start, and you can go right through to the next.
Okay.
I was also already introducing myself, but maybe you will cut out the stuff before. So I studied food technologies, technical design and advertisement. I was working for more than 20 years in economy in different companies. And yeah, it was also a learning process for me. And in the year 2005, I did my permaculture design course. My teacher was Joe Palaischer. He was Austrian living in New Zealand, and he established the Rainbow Valley farm there. It was a great farm, but I never have visited it. And yeah, Joe Palaischer sadly died in the year 2008. And in this time, then the farm was sold, and now it was passed over several times, sold several times, this farm. So I don't know what's going on with the farm right now. But he was very inspiring for me. And so I know I've known that I should also go ahead with permaculture in my life and to have a look how I can integrate it in my life. And in 2007, I stopped working in economy, and then I dealt with permaculture and started giving lectures and so on. Yeah, and some years ago, I inherited the farm from my father, also from my parents, where my father started the forest garden in the late 1980s. And now I'm living here on this land. I'm working with the land, and we are living now here in 4 generations. I'm already a grandfather, and also my grandchildren live here with us. Yeah, so it's quite busy, and during the year we do have volunteers. So in 2 weeks, in the beginning of March, we will start with interns again via the Erasmus project, via Erasmus Plus, and also with interns via Workaway. We take in. Okay, so we can go to the next presentation, please. To the next slide. So you saw already the movie about our forest garden. It's more than 30 years old, but there was no starting point. We don't know when it was really started. It was somehow in 1989, 1988. We don't know actually, but somehow around this. Our altitude here is 316 meters above sea level. Our USDA is 7A. This is the winter hardiness zone 7A. So the coldest we can get here is about -17. Some years ago we had -19. Yeah, in total we have less than 3 acres. It's 2.795. So it's so little that we don't get any subsidies from the Austrian government and no subsidies from the European government. So this is also good luck for us. So here you have somehow the overview. Our land around the house is also divided somehow in the zones. Around the houses, we have the zone number 1 with the vegetable gardens. Then you see the forest garden. This is zone number 2. And the agroforestry with the walnuts. This is zone number 3. And in former time, it was a sheep meadow with the walnut trees. But in case of all these restrictions of vaccinating the sheep and all this stuff we need to do, we gave up keeping sheep. And now people of our community can rent or can become members, and as members they can use small garden plots there. So this is much more better than the sheep on the land. So we can go to the next slide, please. So here you have somehow, when you look from the garden into the forest garden, the beginning somehow is the crater garden. And then in the back you have the forest garden. And now we're coming somehow into the perma veggies. We can go into the next slide, please. I will talk now about living the forest garden with its perma veggies, because it's not only a showing garden, it's not a show garden, it's also a garden, an edible garden. This is somehow the main topic, to find everything for your daily life you need. We grow mushrooms. Mainly I grow the shiitake mushroom. It's one of the most expensive ones. It's one of those which are most easiest to grow. So we have this. And I also do have oyster mushroom, lemon mushrooms, and then different other ones. But I grow them on logs, and in the forest gardens, there are already growing mushrooms just right under the trees, wild mushrooms, but also edible ones. But not very high quality, but also not so bad for consumption. Yeah, we use the seeds of plants, of perennial plants. We harvest the seeds like stinging nettle, or we have a big diversity of berries. We use flower buds. We use leaves. We use shoots and tubers. We use grapes. We have fruits. You saw already in the film. We use blossoms. We use stems, and we also do have a big variety of nuts. So we can go to the next slide, please. I will also give you a short definition of forest garden. So this is somehow my definition. Forest garden is a complex agroforestry system of vertical layers and the use of gaps in time. Because the most people think you have to have big gaps in between the trees, but this is not really needed. You can stack them quite dense together, all the trees and the shrubs underneath. We are doing this since the beginning, and because over the time in the year, the trees are losing their leaves, and in springtime, the first is the bear garlic, for example. The bear garlic is the first, and the bear garlic is the plant which is producing its leaves when there is total sunlight in the forest garden. There are no leaves on the trees, no blossoms, and the bear garlic gets all the sun. And then the canopy of the forest garden is somehow closing step by step and getting always more dark. And in this time already, other bear is growing and taking the energy from the sun. So we are using the time, the loose of the leaves of the trees, and the layers. So we are working somehow like in a tropical rainforest, but we are using the issue of the time as well. And the definition of perma veggies for me is somehow perennial edible plants and annual self-seeding plants. So you might know already a lot of them as wild herbs you are growing in the garden wild and you don't know and you don't use. So, and here we have now the roots and the tubers we use as perma veggies. We use a lot the Jerusalem artichoke. The great thing with the Jerusalem artichoke is you don't have to store. You just leave in the ground, and when the soil is not frozen, but also here in Austria or in my region, the soil is not deeply frozen. So also in wintertime, when you have frost, you can go out with a fork and dig out the Jerusalem artichokes. So it's the best just to keep them in the ground and take out what you need for your meal or for the week, because inside they will rot quite quickly. And there is also one relative of the Jerusalem artichoke we use mainly. It's the pea leaf woodland sunflower. It's the Helianthi. It's also related to the Jerusalem artichoke, but the tubers are much more nicer than of the Jerusalem artichoke. They are much easier cleaned than the Jerusalem artichoke. There it's quite difficult. The common evening primrose, we also use the roots, but it's quite difficult work. So it's always the question, what is easier to use and what is not so easy to use. Pastinac, for example, is quite easy, and it's if you let grow a few of them and don't harvest, they will be spreaded by seed on the plot. Or the horseradish, it's growing almost itself without any taking care or whatever. Yeah, so this is somehow the tubers. Now we are in the bulbs. The bulbs, we have the spring onion. Spring onion is one of the onions we use mainly. The spring onion, we cut the stems just in little slices, put them in the salad, use them in pestos, or just add them into the meal, but not just at the end, not at the beginning, because they will lose the taste if you add them already in the beginning. So you can also use the bulbs of them because they are dividing themselves by the bulbs as well, and they're also producing the seeds. Another kind of onion is the walking onion. It's producing, it's having its bulb in the ground, but also producing small bulbs on the top. And it's somehow also working in layers, because the small bulbs they get on top, they also can get another attach of bulbs again. Yeah, bear garlic is also a kind of bulb you can use, but it's quite small, so it's also the issue if you rather use the leaf or the bulb. So we use mainly the leaf of the bear garlic. We also have the vineyard garlic. It's kind of garlic which is quite common here in Austria. It was brought during the Habsburg kingdom from the southern parts of the Habsburg kingdom. So the labor were bringing it from their countries, like from Croatia or Hungary. The people were bringing it to Austria in this time. And when they were working in the vineyards here in Austria, they were planting their own garlic somewhere in between the rows of vine. So this it's some kind of native garlic. Yeah, and then there are a lot of different more bulbs you can also use. So we can go to the next slide, please. This is quite interesting. I like the shoots. The shoots, we know mainly the asparagus. The asparagus as a shoot we have in our gardens, but a lot of other plants can be used instead of asparagus. We planted a big amount of Indian pockweed. You can sometimes they're announced as poison, but I add them just 2 or 3 days. I add every day the Indian pockweed, and I had no problems. So we are peeling the skin off, and we are boiling first, and then we take the water away. We give the water away, and then you can use you can fry it, or you can use with the vegetables, so without any problems. But in general, I would also recommend any kind of wild vegetable you're going to use. If you don't know it, you should only take it in a small amount. Or if you have problems with your kidneys, you should also make sure that you don't want face problems with your kidneys. This is also somehow you have to take care. So we also use the shoots from the common hop. When the hop is germinating in springtime from the ground, we just harvest the young shoots and we fry them in the pan, or we make soup out of the hop, of the young shoots. But mainly we mix it with the stinging nettles, because we are getting a few shoots of the hop, but also big amount of stinging nettles. So it's easier to get a good amount of soup, not just for one person. So when we're doing this, when I cook with my volunteers and some other people, then mainly we cook our lunch for 3, 4, 5 people, and then if you just find 10 shoots of the hop, you can't make a soup out of it. So you need big amount, and it could be one part of the soup. Yeah, and also the Japanese knotweed could be used as instead of asparagus, but the Japanese knotweed, it's a little bit dangerous here in Austria that it won't spread itself and take over the garden. So I'm rather avoiding it to plant it in our garden. But yeah, it would be edible, and I ate it already. So it's always an issue of the spices you add into. This is somehow, it's always about the spices. So we can go to the next slide. Yeah, the stems are also a very important part of the perma veggies. The stems you can use. Quite well known is the cardoon, or cardi, it's called. it's quite well known, and it's used in Italy or in France as a vegetable. And in the forest garden, you might find also a lot of other plants you can use instead, like the common hawkweed. I use the stems from the common hawkweed, so it's totally edible, and you just boil it first and then you can add it into the vegetables. Or also, yeah, the coltsfoot, I did trials, but yeah, with the coltsfoot, you should take care. It's always the issue about the amount, and this is summer, but yeah, the common hawkweed, it's really no problem. Or the greater burdock, it's really good vegetable if you use the stems. And a lot of people recommend to dig out, to go for the roots of the greater burdock. But once I did a trial, we were digging out about more than 20 plants in the morning, me and the volunteer, and it took us the whole morning digging them out, cleaning them, making them fine for cooking, and at the end we had a handful of roots. So it's much better that you keep the plant alive and just cut off the stems and use the stems as a vegetable instead of going for the roots. So yeah, of course the roots have the starch, but yeah, in the leaves you don't have the starch. But even in the stems, you gain a better harvest instead of the roots. So we can go to the next, please. We're at the leaves already, and now in these days, one quite famous tree is the Chinese vegetable tree, the Chinese tun. It's a tree which produce many of leaves, and the leaves taste like the dish chop suey. If you might know the dish chop suey, it tastes quite similar. Yeah, and we like this a lot. And you just, as you see on the picture, you can harvest the young branches when they are quite tender, and you can eat them with the leaves on it. You just can pick and eat them from the tree. They're really nice. Some people recommend to cook them and with the vegetables, but if you boil, it's losing mainly its taste. We also tried to dry the leaves and use it then as a powder, but it's also losing its taste. So mainly you should use it fresh. You can add the leaves in the salad, the young ones, or you remove the leaves then from the stem, and the leaves, they also give a really nice pesto. If you mix the leaves just with the spring onion, you add some oil, the leaves of the Chinese tun and the spring onion, you might have a really nice pesto. It's really great. Yeah, and we do have a lot of the New Zealand spinach. It's also spreading itself. If you have it once in your garden, you just harvest the leaves, the top leaves, and then it's spreading itself by the seeds. It's annual plant, but it will regrow. So here in Austria, in my part of Austria, the seeds are not killed by the frost. They can stay on the surface, and then in the year after they will germinate again. Good King Henrik is also a vegetable you can use in the salad. It's quite old vegetable. Yeah, good King Henrik is quite well known. So, and we also grow the tall buckwheat. It's a perennial buckwheat, and in springtime when it's germinating again, you can take also the young shoots, but mainly we go on the leaves. We use the leaves in the salad, we use the leaf in the soup, we use the leaf in the pesto. The leaves, they have no specific taste, but to mix, they're quite good. So you have a big amount of them if you're raising them in the garden. You just have to take care that they don't overwhelm everything else. And yeah, we also use the garlic mustard. Garlic mustard is also growing wild in our farm, in the forest garden, in the garden, or just somewhere in the meadow. It's growing wild. So we can go to the next slide, please. Now we are at the perma veggies, the flower buds. So there are numerous of plants where you can eat the buds. So from the linden tree, we eat the leaves. You can also eat the buds, but mainly here we use the leaves from the linden. We eat the leaves raw in the salad when they're young, or even we dry the linden and make flour out of it to mix it with the flour. Very interesting flower buds are the daylilies. Daylily you might know from your garden as well. It's this lily which has these orange flowers, and the Hermacocallis, you can usually eat any kind of these daylilies, any color. Not any kind, but any color you can eat of the daylily. But at the daylilies, you have also to take care. Your digestion system just has to get used to it. It's also the same with the Jerusalem artichoke, you know. It's always the amount and the starting of it. Even maybe in springtime, if you start picking the first wild herbs in the garden, your body has to get used to. So it's always somehow about this. Yeah, the magnolia is also edible flower bud. You can eat it raw in the salad. It has a really nice taste. Yeah, if you boil it, it gets a little bit slimy. So, but yeah, it will lose its texture. It's nicer to use it right in the salad or to use it for dipping, you know, as a dipping stick or something like this. Yeah, the common mallow is also a flower bud you can use for boiling, because the malva also, the okra is in the family of the malva, so it's also a vegetable. You can use the flower bud. Yeah, and you can also, of course, go for the common dandelion, for the flower buds of the dandelion. You can eat them raw in the salad. So now we're coming to the opened blossoms. So the giant bellflower, you might know from the forests. These have a really nice taste, but yeah, they are good in a salad. But a few flowers, a few blossoms on them, they won't feed you, so you need a really big amount, or you have to mix. The common daisy we also add in the salad. These are either salad plants, all of them. Also the chaco flower we add, it's growing in the meadow. The Himalayan balsam is producing nice fruits you can eat. From the Himalayan balsam, I also add the shoots already. They're also very nice shoots. The sprouts they're making in springtime, they're also nice. You can cut small and add into the vegetables. Yeah, and the European bladdernut, you might know. The European bladdernut, it was the blossom on the last picture. And it's, if you let grow them, they will produce these somehow balloons, green balloons they produce, and in every balloon there are 1, 2, 3, 4 bladder nuts in it. But you can also only eat the nuts till May or June, and then they become too hard. So the best is if you eat already the blossoms. The blossoms are very nice. Of the bladder nut, you just add into the salad. So we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, and now we have the pots. The pots is also interesting. What is edible here? We have the sweet Sicily. It is a really nice plant with a really specific taste. I don't get now the English word of this plant, how it tastes like. Yeah, the pea wedge is producing the pots, or the Siberian pear shrub is producing the pots. It's also nitrogen fixer, the pear shrub. And so we have it a lot in our forest garden. But all the pots of the pear shrub, it should be boiled first and then added into the vegetables. If you eat the pots raw, they're really ugly. You won't eat them. So, but yeah, you need quite big amount, and it's better. It's always the issue, what will I eat and what will I not eat. So, but it's edible anyway. Quite interesting is also the honey locusts. The honey locusts, if they are green, the pots you can use instead of the green beans in the same way. So I planted also a lot of honey locusts here in our forest garden. It's not so much, it's about 7, 8 trees, but it's plenty for the size of our forest garden. And last year they produced the first pots. But I failed to harvest them. I oversaw it. It was already too late. They were not tender anymore, so they were not really edible. But in autumn, then, when they're ripe, when they fall down, you can go for the beans. You can harvest the beans. You take them out, go for the beans, and you can crush them and mill them into flour, and you can mix it with wheat flour, for example, and bake bread out of it. So also this is usable. And yeah, the flat pear, for example. So this is some kind of pots you can use as perma veggies. So please to the next slide. And we also use seeds from the garden. We harvest. We add on the salad, for example, or we just add in the muesli. So why not add the seeds as a perma veggie into the presentation, I thought. So one of the easiest to find is the stinging nettle. Everyone has stinging nettles in its garden. If stinging nettles growing in your garden, you don't have to plant vegetables anymore. It's so rich in all these vitamins or any kind of minerals or whatever you need. So it's the best vegetable you might find around, the stinging nettle. And we are using the stinging nettle from the early springtime. We are always harvesting the top 6 leaves on the top, and then we are using in the soup, or we are drying them and making also flour out of it, and then mixing with the common flour. Yeah, and when it's then time in August, we go also for August till September. We go for the seeds. We are harvesting then the seeds of the stinging nettles. They are also very rich. Yeah, one quite well-known herb is the ground elder. Some people try to get rid of it, but you won't never get rid of it if you have it, the ground elder. We use a lot of the ground elder from the early spring. The leaves just we use right in the salad, or we eat them raw just by harvesting, just out of the meadow or wherever we might find it. And the ground elder, it's also producing seeds, and these seeds are also very nice. You can add also on top of the salad if you let grow them out. Yeah, if they're adult, the ground elder, it has really nice seeds. Yeah, and the leafy goose food, it's kind of, we in German we call it strawberry spinach. If I would translate it into English, strawberry spinach. I like this more than leafy goose food. This you can eat the leaves, and it's also producing small fruits. They look like, or somehow they look like strawberries. So you can use them as decoration on your food. But yeah, you can also eat the seeds of them. So everything is edible. The leaves, the fruit, and the seeds. Yeah, and one quite famous plant is the tree spinach, the Chenopodium giganteum. It's growing huge. It's growing up to 2 meters, 2 meters and 20 here around, and it's spreading itself. It's an annual plant, but it's getting woody in the autumn. But yeah, we use the leaves in a big amount, and we also harvest the seeds. This makes really a sense to harvest the seeds because you get really a big amount of seeds. So this is always the issue. It's always about, does it make a sense? Is it more work for harvesting, or is it useless to harvest? This is always the issue. So you see, your yield should already start in front of your door. When you go out of your house, already your food can grow. And you see everything here on the picture is edible. Yeah, so we can go to the next picture. Next slide, please. Here you see how our salads are sometimes looking, or even much more colored as well. So the wild gathering from the forest garden mixed with perma veggies from our vegetable garden. So you have also to divide what will I grow in the forest garden on perma veggies and what perma veggies will I grow in my vegetable garden, because some plants will just disappear in the forest garden. So if you plant, for example, the spring onion, it will get lost somehow in the forest garden. It makes either a sense if you grow it on a garden bed in a big number, because of the spring onion, you need a big number. If you're a family, you can add them every day in your meal, your main meal, and you can harvest them from the end of February here in my region, maybe in Finland, then when there is no snow anymore, but they come quite early. And here they're growing till the end of October, beginning of November, and then they are dying for the year, but they will regrow the next year. So yeah, and here you see, for the appetizer, I recommend the Indian pockweed. I had them already in my presentation, but now Here you see it, how it can look like then on the plate, and it's how it looks like in the garden and how it looks like after harvest. As I told you, we're peeling off the skin. Only the seeds are poison, and the tuber in the ground is poison of the Indian pocky weed. But the young shoots, they're not poison, and also the young leaves are not poison. So you peel and you boil, and then you can fry them or whatever. And yeah, they're really nice. Real nice with garlic, for example. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Yeah, we had the appetizer, now we're at the soup. Here for the soup, this is tomato soup, but yeah, there is also basil on the tomato soup, but in the tomato soup, I added the per annual ginger, the Myoga ginger. It's a ginger who can stand our climate conditions. So this is quite interesting, and you see these flower buds. You harvest these flower buds, and I just added them into the soup. They are not as strong in the taste like the common ginger, so they are quite tender and not so gingery, but yeah, quite nice taste. And yeah, for the stew, now we have the common hawkweed. You see the plant on top on the left side, and also the greater burdock and the coltsfoot. This is somehow in the mixture in here. And when it's boiled, then I add the spring onion at least, so that you still have the taste, and you can eat it with rice, you can eat it with pasta, you can eat it with buckwheat, whatever. So it's quite nice stew. So, and then for the main dish, I preserved for you the daylilies, the flower buds of the daylilies. And yeah, first I roasted the bulbs of the walking onion, and I roasted them with a little bit of raw sugar and with paprika. And then I added the flower buds at least, because even the flower buds I don't boil too long, because then they become too slimy. And yeah, here we do have the buckwheat with the peas. And as a pesto, I serve here the leaves of the Chinese tune. So this is somehow my main dish for you. And then we can follow up with an omelette. Here you see how we serve our omelettes. I mix the common flour with, for example, with the seeds of the tree spinach. You can mix them, or I also mix them with the flour of the stinging nettle. So in about half a kilogram of common flour, you can add a quarter of a liter of tree spinach seeds. This is no problem. And maybe also somehow the same ratio. So 25% you can always add of other kind of flours. And yeah, they will still do fine. And in these omelets, there are no eggs in it. So it's just water and flour and a little bit of salt. And then we take fresh from the garden. You see wild herbs here on the omelette. You see also the Chinese salads. We also grow the Chinese salads because like pak choi or red giant or Mitsuna, they are very nice. They can stand the winter here outside. but also in the greenhouse. They grow very nice in the greenhouse. So after harvest, in the end of summer, we are already planting the Chinese salads in our greenhouse, and then we can harvest the whole winter, these Chinese salads. And as olives, you see our fake olives, they are made out of the cornel cherries, Cornus Maas. We harvest them green because we have a huge amount of these shrubs. So, we can not only make jam out of it, or we can not only dry them. So we have to use them multi-purpose, and we harvest them green, put them in salt water for 2 months, and then afterwards we put them in a jar, add some garlic into, and then we fill up with olive oil. And after a while, they taste really nice. So much better than common olives. So this was so far the omelette, and I'm already somehow at the end of my presentation. Here you see my publications, but yeah, I'm sorry, the books are only in English. I was writing a book about building bread baking ovens, and I was writing a permaculture book in German, and I was writing a book about our edible forest garden. And in this book already you might find a few things what I told you now, but right now I'm working on the next book. It's about our perma veggies, and it goes much more into deep what I was telling you, quite brief now. Yeah, so this was somehow my presentation, and yeah, I think the most important things you should have back home is a book where you have all the wild plants, that you can go out in the wild just to forage in the wild, to do the harvest in the wild, or just in your garden, that you know every plant in your garden which is edible, that you just can harvest in the garden. Or a book where you can figure out the mushrooms you can use around. So this is somehow one of the most important things you might have for the future, that you should avoid somehow this quite tricky work in your vegetable garden. We also grow our vegetable garden, but we are not so happy with this work starting all over again every year and every year and every year. So that's why we are very into perma veggies. Okay, so far my presentation, and I hope we might have a nice discussion together.
Yes, thank you very much. That was very interesting. I was trying to look up some of the plants, perma veggies I didn't know, and then I knew some that I know that are working here in Finland also, and some were completely unknown, which is this is going to be good to look at the recording again and go through all the names of
Yeah.
the veggies. So yeah, I was looking so delicious, everything. So thank you.
Yeah, it's all about preparation, it's all about preparation and spices.
Yes.
It is some plants you don't have to spice, they have their own taste, but others you have to spice, So like the Chinese tune, you don't have to spice, you just add a little bit of the spring onion, like I told, and then you have a really nice pesto.
Yep. Okay, yeah. So Henrico was asking what was the plant name that you used as olives, but Dominic already answered it as Cornus Maas. What's that in Finnish now? I can check it up while maybe someone else likes to ask a question at this time, or say something.
We also have the Siberian peat tree here. So during the last PermaPuheet, I asked around, like is it okay to eat? And the first teacher was like, oh, you have to ask the other teacher. So I asked the other teacher, and the other teacher was saying, you have to ask someone else. So yeah, I'm quite happy that you said it's edible, but not in its raw form. You have to cook it. So I will try this as soon as I have some. Thank you for that.
Bitter. Anyway, it's quite bitter. You won't eat it raw. You can try it to eat it raw, but you won't eat it raw. So it's so bitter. So
Yes.
it is also, yeah.
I was just wondering, was your father already interested in the perma veggies, or is this something that you have kind of included?
Already my parents started, like the shoots of the hop. The common hop, it's growing almost wild everywhere, but we had it also in the forest garden quite early because it's growing quite fast and it's spreaded quite fast and by the birds. And also my parents are using a lot of the stinging nettles, so just they already start to germinate the stinging nettles. Now we have end of February. So maybe next week we can go for harvesting of the stinging nettles. I've 2 times I was already harvesting some wild herbs. Also the daylilies are starting to sprout already. So, and the young sprouts of the daylilies, they give a really nice salad. They are so nice, these young leaves. So this I add in the wild salad now. And also already my parents started, and also my grandparents, they had to do this. So after war, they had to go for this stuff.
Yes,
And
yes.
if you have farm life, you always use what you have around as well. You don't only raise the stuff in your vegetable garden, you just also use from outside, like the good King Henrik. It was all around Europe. It was quite common in former time.
Yes, I think these were forgotten for a good while. Now the wild perma veggies, no, they were not so interesting, but now they're coming back, I feel.
Yeah, because for some people they don't have the time for raising the garden or taking care of the garden. This is also the issue. So it's better if you know what you can eat out of your garden without doing any work or without just having stones in front of your door. So this is the most ugliest thing. So it's
Yes. Concrete and stones and a little lawn at the back.
yeah. So. And if you have stinging nettles, you don't have to grow vegetables because they are so rich in everything. So this is always somehow, the stupid thing. The stones, you can lick the stones, but you can't eat them.
No, they won't keep you. Full. No, I especially like when we have courses over. Then I will make the spinach soup, but with the stinging nettles. So it's always then funny going outside and picking the stinging nettles from the bushes while the people are listening to Dominic's teaching, and then I will serve them the soup. So it's for some it's self-explanatory and very normal, but for some it's a bit more exotic.
Yeah. The funny thing is when you show someone first time to pick the stinging nettles. First of all, our volunteers and also our students, they're always very afraid of picking them, and they don't want to pick. But then you just have to show how they pick them in the right way to be picked without getting stung. So once I had African volunteers here, and they got really crazy with me. Because they were walking barefoot in my garden, and then they got stung by the stinging nettles. Because in Africa they have quite poison stinging nettles, so they got very afraid of our stinging nettles.
Oh no. There was a question earlier. I don't remember if it was discussed already. Enrica was asking generally how many people are involved in taking care of the garden, or like how many volunteers would you have in a year?
Yeah, usually now in this season, my father and I'm working in the forest garden. My father usually every day now, but I'm not so often. My father is now pruning the trees because we are coppicing a lot, like in the movie, to shredder. So we have a few big heaps now laying outside waiting for be shredded. So now it's just us two, or sometimes my son is also pruning the trees. He did just recently a training of pruning trees and coppicing and all this stuff. So he is now also out in the forest garden and working there sometimes. Yeah, and in the beginning of March, we start with our volunteers. So we will start now with 2 volunteers then in March, but maybe a few more. We could even take 4 volunteers. You know, it depends. There is so much work. So, but you don't have to do this work. If you don't do this work, it's also not. It's also okay, you know. But if you do a little bit more work, you can gain a little bit more harvest. So this is always the issue. And the people always want to know how many people could feed this forest garden. Big amount, but you know, the issue is how will live like this? Who will live like this? It's not about how many, it's always who will live like this. Who will eat it? Who will eat this? Who will eat this? You know, it's not like in a supermarket. You don't get this stuff in a supermarket. You cannot compare our goods like with the goods in the supermarket. This is somehow always the issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she was also asking, is it? So she asked, is there a society behind it or something? So is it your families, or do you have an association or something that is running the volunteer management, or?
We founded an association. It's the Austrian Forest Garden Institute.
Oh, yes, of course.
Österreichisches Waldgarteninstitut. Because it's easier to handle the stuff with the volunteers if you have an association. And we are working, I think, more than 10 years with volunteers. My father worked with just small number of volunteers, but just for example, in the year 2019, we had in total 58 volunteers over the year. You know, from March till December, we had 58. Yes. And usually we take volunteers a minimum of 2 weeks because it don't make sense under 2 weeks. So, you know, we don't need tourists. We need people who enjoy to be here with us, you know, and want to learn something from the oldest or some of the oldest forest gardens, and we don't need tourists just to go through. This you can book, you can hire a tour here, you know, you can hire a tour this for if you want to come as a tourist, and you can support us by hiring a tour. But just to passing through, we don't need people here. No, this is somewhere. Yes. It's not a park. It's not a park. It's a lifestyle, and we are somehow in the middle of a big experiment.
Yes, how amazing! That sounds and looks very well like a lifestyle. No, I think you would a person will either love it or find it very curious.
Yeah.
So, how about anyone else? Do you have questions or comments? Put on the cameras and talk, or just write in the chat. Otherwise, we can start ending. But I think Dominic wanted to say something.
I just have a question. I have here goji berries in the greenhouse. Have you tried them?
Yeah, we had the goji berries. Because the goji berries, they were native here in Austria.
Oh, wow.
But our emperor, Maria Theresia, she let rot them out.
Okay.
because in some parts of Austria they were growing so massive, and they are really growing like a weed here. Even the goji, they're
Okay.
growing like a weed, and they blossom so late. You know,
Yeah,
they
yes.
blossom in the end of August, and you barely get fruits. Also here in Austria, you barely get fruits.
Have you tried the leaves?
I think once or twice I tried them, but I have no idea now how they taste.
It was like spinach a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So because that's the problem as you described it, they blossom very late. So here is September, so you get no fruits, but the shrub grows wild everywhere. Well, there are branches and branches. You have to cut them back constantly, so they make a lot of leaves.
Yeah.
So for me, they are easier than the Chinese tuna.
Okay, yeah, for your region, I can imagine. Yeah.
I had a tuna, not in the greenhouse. I will have another one in the greenhouse now. But the tuna that I had outside here, it made one winter and then it died.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's like in Finland, you know, that's the trial and error. You have to kind of get the
Yeah.
stuff, try it, and then see whether it works or not. Or you read hours through databases and see the USDA hardiness. And that still doesn't give you the idea, kind of, if it really will survive.
Yeah. The funny thing is we have a fig in our forest garden.
Oh,
And
yes. Well,
also sometimes it got frozen totally down, but it's making it's producing a lot of suckers, you know, young ones.
yes.
I'm giving them away, and just recently I met a friend in Bavaria, and at his area it's a little bit warmer than here, and he said, yeah, once you gave me this fig, and it's producing so many fruits. And we we have it since about 20 years in the forest garden, and it never produces. It's producing fruits, but they never get ripe. So this is the issue.
Okay. How about the kiwis or the mini kiwis?
The mini kiwi, they do fine. They do fine.
Nice.
Yeah, they're really great. Now we are 7A. You know, 7A is already quite okay. You know.
Yep.
You can grow wine here as well, but even until the age of the small ice age. You know, there was a few hundred years ago, there was the small ice age. And until this time, they were growing wine here all around, grapes. They were growing all around here. And then after the small ice age, they had to stop growing wine here in our area because we lost about 4 degrees.
Oh, wow. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we are somehow 2 degrees back. As we won already from this 4 degrees we lost, we won already 2 degrees. So now farmers are starting to grow wine again, and even they're doing quite good already. So they're drinkable. They're not only mossed. You can also call them a wine. Yeah, and so we do also. We also make our wine, and we also make our most. But yeah, the luck is we also grow the persimmon. You know.
Yes.
The persimmon is all the Virginian persimmon. It's also growing.
Yeah, I've already seen on some pictures that you have the moros, the different colors.
Yeah, Morus alba is growing quite good here. Morus nigra has some problems. For the nigra, it's a little bit too cold, but the alba is doing fine. And we have, you know, of the alba, we have also the white and the black ones. You get alba in black and white and red. So
okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. The black you saw, this is alba. This is Morus alba, but the black one.
Interesting.
And we have one grafted tree. There is half is black and half is white.
Wow.
Nice.
Like on the piano.
Nice. Okay, anyone else? Last chance. Nope, doesn't look like it. So I think we can then start to wrap up. Thank you, Bernhard. That was really interesting. And yes, maybe we can have you next year. Then you can talk about then more about the bushes or whatever. I think there from each year one layer of
Of
the
the
forest
forest garden. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, just then yeah, if anyone wants to hang around and talk, that's fine. But otherwise, I will thank everyone, and I will tell you that you will get the recording next week with the link to the next week's call, which is by Aline Vamo, and she will be talking about water in all of the permaculture zones. And yes, if you, it's still possible to join the PermaPuheet. So if you have friends who are interested, just send them to our shop. But otherwise, I will thank everyone and yeah, see you next time.